I am Josh Engleman here to break down a 3-game NBA slate. We don't have much going on Super Bowl Sunday, but we're here nevertheless. So I need you guys to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. What's up, everybody? Lovely Sunday. And I got to come home yesterday. The news that Mark Williams is now back on the Charlotte Hornets. The trade has been rescinded. Mark Williams failed. He's failed his medicals with the Lakers. And now they are rescinding the trade. I think this will go down as a giant victory for the Lakers. I wasn't a huge fan of the deal. I think this is a good thing for them in the long run. It is very much not a good thing for them in the short run. Shout out Jackson Hayes. They're going to need a buyout center for sure. Wild scenario. Did not see that one coming at all. Well, I mean, I guess I can't say I didn't see it coming. He clearly has poor medicals. It's not super surprising. But it's kind of nuts. It's kind of nuts. Where do the Lakers go from here? What do they do this summer? Do they go back to this deal in July and try to do it again with a different price tag? Do they go after a different center? You know, this opens up another swap for them. Do they go after Walker Kessler and try to go more defensive? I don't know. But it's going to be fun to see. I don't know how long we're going to be here, guys. You know, we've only got 3 games to break down. We'll probably move through it pretty quickly. Maybe we'll build a lineup in the single lineup sim, and then we'll dip on out of here. But let's go ahead and break this down. The first game we have in front of us for today is the Charlotte Hornets, who will be not having Dalton Connect play for them today. They won't have Josh Green. He's out. Obviously, Brandon Miller is out. Josh Okogie is out. Cam Reddish, obviously not going to be with Charlotte now. Nick Smith is questionable. And then we don't yet know the official status of Jusuf Nurkic. He is listed as questionable on the injury report. My guess is that he's available today. And this being the 1 o'clock game, we should know that in advance. But my expectation is that Nurkic is available. So we're looking at a little bit of ownership coming into Charlotte. Nothing too crazy. They're actually the second lowest owned team. Just barely behind Detroit for third, but Toronto, Houston, and Milwaukee are pulling tons of ownership. Something in my eye. Anyway, let's start with LaMelo. Came back, played massive minutes. Did not necessarily expect him to just go right back into those minutes, but he's 10K today. Point guard only. 22% owned. I have him 23% optimal. Target score 49 fantasy points. We got to remember, there's only 3 games. So raw points matter a lot. You know, LaMelo's at 10K, Embiid's at 10.3, and then Cade Cunningham is at 10.5, I believe. Did I see that correctly? Yes, 10.5. So you've got a couple different options in the pay up department. We'll be probably comparing LaMelo Ball pretty directly to Cade Cunningham when we get to the Detroit side of this one. But LaMelo looks good. I think that ownership is spot on. You can make a case that it should be even a little bit higher. I'm a little surprised at the lack of ownership coming into the rest of Charlotte, though. Like, $8,900 Miles Bridges on a slate like this, 4% owned? That feels a little light, if you're asking me. I have him 15% optimal, 32% chance of scoring 44 fantasy points. I think Miles Bridges should be somewhere around 15% owned. I think Nick Smith should be around 15% owned. He's shooting guard, small forward. He's playing like 30 minutes a night. 4,900 is a completely reasonable price tag. Is he a good per minute dude? No, not really. Like a 0.75 guy. But value-wise, positionality-wise, seems underowned. Daquan Jeffries, decent chance he's starting today with no Josh Green here. He's power forward center eligible, 3,800, 2% owned. Now, I don't think that 2% is going to stay there, but he's another guy that I think should probably be 15 to 20. Nurkic is getting 25% ownership. We don't even know if he's playing, but he's 3,400 and center only. And we're talking about a guy that's a good per minute dude. If Yusuf Nurkic is available for Charlotte today, he looks like a really great value option. And then you still have Moussa Diabate at 4,600. He's one of the 3 guys that are in double digits in ownership on DraftKings, coming in about 18%. I got him 14% optimal, 44% chance of 26.5 fantasy points. I mean, you don't need much more than his projection for today. And obviously, Diabate will look even better if Nurkic happens to be out, because then there's less competition for minutes. It's just Taj Gibson and nothing else. So do keep that in mind, that Diabate's upside is higher if Yusuf Nurkic ends up out. But if I'm ranking Charlotte, it would be LaMelo Ball 1, Yusuf Nurkic 2, Daquan Jeffries 3, Miles Bridges 4, Moussa Diabate 5, Nick Smith 6. You can get to someone like Salon. He's really bad, and I don't expect a ton of minutes, but this is Charlotte. You never know. And then I don't think with LaMelo Ball in, it's pretty tough to want to get to somebody like KJ Simpson. Now on the Detroit side, reminder, these guys are 10-point favorites. They are massive favorites in this spot. Cade is probable. Dennis Schroeder is questionable. And then Lindy Waters is questionable as well. Got about 25% ownership coming into Cade, about 10% to Tobias Harris, about 20 to Jalen Duren, another 15 to Asar Thompson, about 5 to Tim Hardaway, just shy of 10 for Malik Beasley. I like Cade here. I like Cade a lot more than I like LaMelo. I've got Cade at 33% optimal, 54% boom. I have his target score at 51. That's a fantasy point and a half less than his projection for me. I prefer getting to Cade over LaMelo. But ownership matters. You know, we've got a pretty decent gap in ownership between the two. So the relativity between them will matter a lot to me. I do think Asar Thompson's probably a hair over-owned. He's 17%. You know, something in that 10 to 15% range makes a bit more sense to me. Jalen Duren's ownership looks completely reasonable at 20%. You're just hoping that he plays a game where he doesn't get in foul trouble. This will probably look a lot better for Jalen Duren if Nurkic happens to be out. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. for a slate like today is pretty significantly under-owned. Getting to someone at 3,800, shooting guard, small forward, even somebody as bad of a per-minute guy as Hardaway, I think makes a bunch of sense, especially if you're trying to pay up for guys like Cade, or, you know, we're going to be talking about Maxey, Embiid, Dame in a bit. So Tobias Harris is probably a little under-owned as well at 5,800. He's only 10% owned. A 0.85 to 0.9 fantasy point per minute, dude. Looking for 31.5 fantasy points out of him today. That seems pretty reasonable to me. Malik Beasley, to me, under-owned. I think this whole Charlotte and Detroit game is under-owned. I'm about 25% over the ownership in terms of optimal for Charlotte. Similar range on the Detroit side. Whereas we're seeing a ton of ownership. I think Toronto and Houston might be a hair over-owned. I think Philly's getting underrepresented as well, and we'll get to that in a bit. What do you guys like here? I know I don't have a huge crew in chat, but what do you guys like in Charlotte and Detroit? At least I know that the people that are here are going to answer me. It's pretty thin out there today. I actually think I'm going to play this slate. Why not? I'm going to be home, I think. It's not like I care about the Super Bowl. Where are you guys at on it today? Nurk, if he plays. Yeah, Trey, that makes sense. Never hurts to get some ball. I agree. Bo Darling again says agree with Cade over Mello. G Brown says Mello. In My Lifetime says Mello. Andrew says Duran. I think this is a good spot to get low owned value. Kind of excited to build a lineup with a little bit more of Charlotte and Detroit. Let's see what we get in Toronto. Mildly new look Raptors team, just not yet. RJ Barrett is still out. He's in the concussion protocol. Brandon Ingram obviously still out. Jakob Poeltl is still out. Lots of ownership though coming into Toronto, and it starts with 60% ownership to Emmanuel Quickley at 5,600. Last time out for Toronto, we got 28 minutes out of Quickley. Finally took that jump up. He had played 15, then 17, then 21. Now he's up to 28. 28 minutes of Emmanuel Quickley is one of the best plays you can get to. I am not surprised at all to see his ownership be at 60%. I got him 29% optimal, 55% boom at 31 fantasy points. He's just not priced correctly if he's going to be able to play this many minutes. So that's why you're seeing such big ownership coming into Emmanuel Quickley. Fully deserved. Fully deserved. Then you're getting another 30 to Grady Dick, which I think makes a lot of sense. He looks like the second best Toronto option to me. 4,300, shooting guard only. Minutes are there with all those bodies out. You know, he's going to play in that like 28 to 32 range. Good enough per minute that you don't feel bad. You know, you're looking for 25 fantasy points. Seems very reasonable. Then you have Scotty Barnes, Jonathan Mobo, and Ochai Agbaji, all about 20% owned. I would rank those guys in a very different way. I also think Jacoby Walter is pretty massively under-owned and should be getting a lot more love than he is. I also could just be a little high on him and a little low on Agbaji. But Barnes for 9,200, point guard, small forward eligibility. It seems perfectly reasonable in that 20 to 25 range. Mobo, assuming he's starting again, lost the power forward eligibility, which is a real inconvenience. If he were still power forward center, that would be massive. But unfortunately now just center eligible. 3,900 though, 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. I got him at 5.7x his salary. 20% ownership makes perfect sense. You just have to watch the minutes between Jacoby Walter and Ochai Agbaji. Neither one of them are great per minute dudes. Position's better for Walter. Salary's better for Agbaji. Walter, a slightly better per minute guy. Keep an eye on the ownership disparity between Walter and Agbaji, though. I think if one of them, like Agbaji's separating from Walter, if that continues, I kind of like Walter to be a little sneakier. And then I think it's reasonable to use someone like Jamal Shed as a flyer. Now, the Houston side of this one, not expecting to see Tari Eason today. Houston's on a back-to-back. I don't think they're going to be playing Tari Eason in back-to-backs. We did see Reed Shepherd get a pretty sizable minutes bump on February 4th when they played a back-to-back and Eason was out. Because we're still missing Fred VanVleet here. We're still missing Jabari Smith here. We are getting 35% ownership to Amin Thompson. I think that's fully deserved. I have him 28% optimal, 48% boom, 5x salary. He's 8,500, point guard, small forward eligible. Looks awesome here today. I have no issues at all with that ownership. I don't really have any issues with the Jalen Green ownership either. 7,100. 50% is a lot of ownership, to be clear. But 28% optimal, 48% boom. Houston has the second highest optimal rate of any team other than Milwaukee. Obviously, you guys know why Milwaukee looks as good as they do. I think Dylan Brooks is under-owned at 9%. I got him 20% optimal, 40% boom. You're looking for 27 fantasy points. He's playing 33 minutes a night. Power forward only kind of sucks, but surprised to see him be less than 10% owned. Şengün's pulling heavy ownership. I think he should. I think he's the best play on Houston. 34% optimal, 62% chance of 43 fantasy points. This to me is one of the best plays of the day. 45% ownership is fully deserved. 8,600, not that crazy of a price tag. I think Şengün very clearly your best Houston Rocket. And then you're getting, excuse me, heavy ownership to Cam Whitmore. He's 40% owned, 4,100. Shooting guard, small forward eligible. I got him 23% optimal, 43% chance of 24 fantasy points. The value on Cam Whitmore looks great. I think Reed Shepherd should get a bit more love here. In the last game they had where Tari Eason sat that back-to-back, they started with Aaron Holiday in the first half. Reed Shepherd started the second half. He ended up playing well over 24 minutes. I went 24 minutes for Shepherd today. If he's unowned, I think he's one of the more interesting pivots. And could very easily be playing blowout run if this game goes a little squirrely. There we go. Steven, I like to hear it. I like to hear it. You guys got one last chance to subscribe at OddsShopper in the Portfolio EV tool and get it for 75% off using the promo code SB75. This ends today. We ran this deal for the Super Bowl. If you are interested in pick'em sites or sports books, this is what you're looking for. You can take a market-based approach to beating the books. We offer expected value and expected win rate on all of the props you could imagine. We have historical results of everything we've ever recommended. You could build out your own portfolio, find your own little niche that's been performing well, get alerts to your phone the moment bets hit those qualifications that you set. We've got odds boost calculators, parlay builders. You could shop around for your best lines, dig into trend data if that's something you're interested in. All of this exists at Portfolio AV and OddsShopper. You can get it. Promo code SB75. Final game. Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I think these guys are massively underowned right now. Now, Joel Embiid is questionable for today. Paul George is available. Yabusele is probable. We have 20% ownership coming into Embiid at 10,300. I think he looks great. I think it's a very interesting conversation between him and Alperen Şengün because you obviously save a decent chunk of salary for Şengün, but if we know that Embiid can play real minutes and there's no Giannis on the opposite side, this is a pretty nice spot. I think Embiid is a bit underowned. But if we're talking about underowned people, we got to start with Tyrese Maxey. If we're going to be seeing that kind of ownership coming into Cade Cunningham and LaMelo, $9,700, 6% owned Tyrese Maxey looks like the pivot of all pivots. 3% owned Kelly Oubre looks like an amazing pivot at 6,500. Are you paying up to be contrarian? Yeah, you are. Is that a great way to go about this slate? Yeah, I think so. 2% ownership to Paul George. He's 7,700, small forward, power forward eligible. Has he been good? No. Do I want to play way more than 2% of him today? I certainly do. I think Yabu and Quentin Grimes are both guys you can use in lineups today. But I think Embiid is underowned. I think Maxey might be the best leverage play on the slate. I think Kelly Oubre might be the second best leverage play on the slate. And I don't think Paul George is too far behind. These guys are massively underowned. I don't get why. I really don't. Now, based on where the line is, I think Joel Embiid is not going to play today. With Embiid in, I have the Sixers as 6-point favorites. So we need to be very cautious about this game because it is leading me to believe that he's not playing. Let's just see how much it moves. If I take Embiid out and I don't get too bogged down on the minutes, I want to see how much it moves. Let's just give Drummond 16 minutes. We'll give Bona 16 minutes. And I'll throw 16 under Ricky Council. That moves the line from Sixers minus whatever the hell I said. Okay, to minus 1.5. So I still have a pretty sizable gap there. Really feels like Embiid's not going to be playing today. I hope that he does. because I think that the rest of Philly is massively underowned if he is. Now, the Milwaukee side is just grabbing all the ownership in the world because it's a 3-game slate and because Giannis Antetokounmpo is out. And that is giving us 50% ownership to Damian Lillard, which at 9K makes perfect sense to me. I don't know how you dodge getting to Dame. When Giannis isn't around, he runs the whole show. Dame's great. Bobby Portis is starting in Giannis's place. He's 6,100. He's power forward, center eligible. He's a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. I have him 57% optimal. Listen to this, guys. 77% boom. You need 33 fantasy points out of Bobby Portis. I have him projected for 40. Insane. Bobby Portis is projected for 90% ownership. He deserves every bit of it. And then we get to Kyle Kuzma because for some strange reason, DraftKings broke him. He is $3,800 on DraftKings, small forward, power forward eligible, $6K on FanDuel. He's 18% owned on FanDuel. He's 75% owned on DraftKings and deserves every bit of it. Why is Kyle Kuzma 3,800? I got him at 6.9x his salary in 25 minutes. He could play 30 minutes today without question. It would be shocking if he played less and not shocking in any way if he played more. He's 42% optimal, 64% chance of 23 fantasy points. You have to jam Kyle Kuzma today. I don't know how you avoid it. The price is $2,000 off of where it should be. Yeah. I don't know if Kuzma's minutes will go up, but there is no legitimate reason why it would go down. So you're playing Portis in almost everything you do. You're playing Kuzma in almost everything you do. And you're playing quite a bit of Damian Lillard. But I think Brook Lopez deserves a deeper look at 5,300. I think Taurean Prince is way better than a 3% owned $3,900 value guy. I think Gary Trent is way better than a 4% owned $3,700 value guy. Oddly enough, the Bucks might be under-owned. And I say that as someone who thinks that Bobby Portis, Kyle Kuzma, and Damian Lillard deserve their ownership. But I think Lopez, Prince, Trent are all under-owned. Let's build some lineups and see what this looks like. Why not? This should be fun. Let's see how the Czar does. Large contest. 35% to first. Let's get Kuzma. Let's get Portis. Let's get Nurk. Let's get Şengün. Guess we're going to fade Embiid here. All right, point guard. Dame, clearly the best value. Cade and LaMelo next to each other. Maxey, you're paying up to be contrarian. So let's look at Cade. Shooting guard, I think we could look at Grady Dick. I think we're going to have more than enough salary. We got 6,600 for guard and forward. Let's see what kind of value we can get here in that price range. I mean, I guess we could go quickly, but he's so owned. If I go Jalen Green, and Tobias Harris. $400 left over. This is the first draft. First try. See how we do. Kind of got away from the value equation that I was looking at. Yeah, negative 5.4. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Let's build the best one right out of the gate. I think that'll be the easiest thing to do. So Şengün is definitely going back into it. Too good of a value. I think we're going to be able to get away from one of Kuzma or Portis. And that's going to be the interesting piece here. I do think Grady Dick needs to be in there. Let's get a Sar Thompson. Let's get Dame. Trying to avoid some of the crazy ownership. Get Cam Whitmore in there. Yeah, I think Portis is the guy that I just can't get away from. I have 2 Houston guys already. I don't want a third. What happens if I grab Daquan Jeffries there and I have 9,300 left over? Who do I get? I get Scotty Barnes. Let's see what it looks like. So I think we gave up a lot of ownership here by getting Daquan Jeffries in and not having Kuzma. Negative 19. All right. Well, we know what we need to do then. We know exactly how this needs to be played. It is Bobby Portis, immediately in. It is Kyle Kuzma, immediately in. Quickly in. Dame in. Jalen Green in. Şengün in. Whitmore. Brolo? Look at that ownership number. This one might be the worst I've ever built. It's either going to be amazing or awful. Yeah, awful. Awful. I wanted to see what it would look like if I just tried to take all of the ownership that I could take. All right, if we're thinking through pay-ups, we've got the 3 10K guys. They're all basically the same ownership. Embiid is your best point per dollar play, but he's also a center. Then you get to Cade and LaMelo. Is the double ownership worth it for Dame? I'd say no, which leads me to think that we want to go Cade or LaMelo as a pay-up. I'm going to go LaMelo for this first one. Now as we work our way down, let's look at really have a hard time getting away from this Bobby Portis value. Let's go position by position. Let's look through shooting guard. Oubre's value is so bad that I don't think we could recover from it. Which makes me think that Jalen Green is the option. Grady Dick's value is just so much better at lower ownership. So it's got to be Grady Dick. Small forward. We're looking for like 5x value. This feels like a Sar Thompson. Power forward. Now this is where we probably just end up having to take Bobby Portis or Kuzma here. So I think we're giving up too much by going all the way down to Agbaji immediately. Tobias Harris just isn't the best value. Yeah, I think that just ends up having to be Portis. Then we get to center. I think the ownership gap on Şengün is not worth it. And it lets me think that we're going to be able to get Embiid. We have 4,800 for guard forward utility. We don't have a Houston guy yet. I think we could eat the Cam Whitmore ownership. Leaves us 5,200 for our final two guys. There's not really an interesting small forward option. How much salary do we have left if we take Kuzma? 6,600. Which would be quickly. That feels unnecessary. But what does it look like? I haven't built a good one yet. This is getting scary. I think this one's going to be good, but I left 1,000 on the table. There's no chance I actually want to do that. More than I need. Yeah, negative 21.8. I can't find the path here, guys. It definitely has something to do with Portis and Kuzma for sure. Put Portis at center, Kuzma at power forward. That will not affect a single thing. Who is the other forward we want here? If I go Amin Thompson, then I can't take anybody. So it's got to be somebody lower in salary. What value do we have here? Nurk? If I go Nurk utility, forward becomes... How comes Tobias Harris? That's going to be terrible too. I'm struggling. That's leaving $1,200 on the table too. I don't want to do that. Yeah, that's dreadful. That's dreadful. I'm going to run the full contest generator and see what we're missing here. Yeah, negative 19. Let's run a contest. 5,000 lineups. And then we'll let's see what's grading out well. Very surprised. The Czar. It is Sunday. I had some cocktails yesterday. Maybe the Czar isn't running at full capacity. All right. Let's simulate these lineups. Let's see what the top lineups actually look like. Then we're going to dip on out of here. You guys can go watch your Super Bowl. Yeah, I ain't no czar today, apparently. I'm really curious to see who's going to be in some of these lineups at the top. Guys, thank you for being here. If you are here watching this right now and you haven't hit the like button yet, can you do that for me, please? That would be nice. Very helpful. You only get me for 2 more days this week. You got me Monday and Tuesday. I'm going to be off on Wednesday and Thursday. My birthday is Wednesday. I'm taking off. And then it's the All-Star break starting Friday. So we're not going to have anything going on for a couple days. But I'm taking an extra 2. All right, here we go. What are the top lineups? LaMelo, Whitmore, Asar, Portis, Nurkic, Scotty Barnes, Kyle Kuzma, Alperen Şengün. Ball, Dick, Whitmore, Kuzma, Nurkic, Quickly, Thompson, Embiid. Man, I felt like I was on that. All right. If you take the top 50 lineups, what do we see? Big time sim ROI on Orlando Robinson, Daquan Jeffries, Asar Thompson, Paul George, Embiid, Whitmore. Most exposed guys, Kuzma, Whitmore, Portis, Embiid, Şengün, Quickly. Einsteinium, it's my birthday, man. I'm very happy to be dodging that one. Very happy to dodge that 14 gamer. Ugh. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for our 3-game Super Bowl Sunday NBA slate. Thanks for being here. You know where we're at tomorrow. Bright and early, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Breaking down, I think we've got either 8 or 10 games tomorrow. Let's double check. We got 10 tomorrow. Probably 9 on the DraftKings slate. They'll probably drop that 10:30 start. But really nice slate for tomorrow. You guys have fun. I'll talk to you guys later. Go Chiefs. Travis Kelce, Super Bowl.